The war room was filled with worried faces. Admiral Krathzon stood at the center, watching holographic displays show one disaster after another. Red markers indicated lost ships. Entire fleets were disappearing from the maps. The Void Collective was winning, and everyone in the room knew it. Counselor Vera Thane entered the chamber quietly. She carried a datapad that felt heavy in her hands. Though it weighed almost nothing, the information inside was what made it heavy. She had found something in the old archives, something that was supposed to be deleted forever. The Supreme Chancellor was speaking loudly, as he always did when he was scared. His voice echoed through the chamber. The council members around him nodded, but their eyes showed fear. They were losing this war badly. Vera waited for the right moment. When the Chancellor paused to take a breath, she spoke up. Her voice was steady even though her heart was racing. The archives mention a species that fought wars like this before. They won battles against impossible odds. Their tactics could help us now. The room went silent. Several council members looked uncomfortable. The Chancellor's face turned an odd shade of purple. We do not speak of them. They are gone. They were a primitive species that went extinct centuries ago. This topic is closed, but Vera had seen the combat records. She had read the tactical reports. Whatever these humans were, they were not primitive. The numbers did not lie. They had defeated Confederation fleets 300 years ago, and that is why no one was allowed to talk about them. Far across the galaxy, in a place where no maps showed any stars, Jake Morrison sat in his captain's chair. The room around him was dark except for the screens showing data streams. His ship, the Ghost Protocol, was hidden inside a hollowed asteroid. It had been home for his entire life. Jake was 32 years old, but he looked older. Life in hiding did that to people. His grandfather had commanded this ship before him. His grandmother had helped build it after the Purge. Now it was his turn to keep humanity alive in the shadows. Dr. Lisa Hamilton entered the command center. She was holding a data chip, and her expression told Jake that something important had happened. Lisa was the ship's historian. She spent her days protecting the truth about humanity, writing down everything so future generations would remember. We intercepted a transmission. It is from deep inside Confederation space. Someone is asking for help. Jake took the data chip and plugged it into his console. The message played on his screen. It showed battle footage, tactical data, and a desperate request. The Confederation was dying, and they needed help from anyone who could fight the Void Collective. The message did not mention humans by name, but buried in the tactical data were references to old combat strategies. Someone in the Confederation knew about humanity and was reaching out in secret. They tried to kill us all. Why should we help them now? The voice belonged to Ryan Clark, Jake's first officer. Ryan was younger than Jake, but he had lost his parents in a Confederation attack 20 years ago. His anger was understandable. Jake studied the data carefully. The Void Collective was different from the Confederation. The Confederation had tried to erase humanity because of fear and pride. The Void wanted to consume everything. If the Void won, there would be nothing left. No humans, no Confederation, no one. We watch and wait. If they are desperate enough, they will admit what they did to us. Then we decide. Admiral Krathzon stood on the bridge of his flagship. Through the windows, he could see the planet Karatha Prime. It was one of the oldest worlds in the Confederation. Billions of people lived there. Now the Void Collective was coming to take it all away. His fleet was ready. 200 warships formed defensive positions around the planet. They had the best weapons, the strongest shields, and the most advanced computers. None of it mattered. The Void always won. The enemy appeared on the sensors. Hundreds of organic ships grown rather than built. They moved in patterns that made no sense until it was too late to react. The Void was not just smart. It could think faster than any living being. The battle began badly and got worse. Every tactic Krathzon used, the Void countered within minutes. It learned from each attack and adapted. Ships exploded around him. The screams of dying crews filled the communication channels. By the time the retreat order came, half his fleet was gone. Karatha Prime burned behind them. Another world lost, another failure. That night, Krathzon could not sleep. He kept thinking about the old stories his grandfather had told him. Stories about a war that was never supposed to be mentioned. Stories about a species that fought in ways no computer could predict. Vera Thane moved through the darkness of the restricted archives. She had disabled the security systems using codes she was not supposed to have. What she was doing could get her executed for treason, but thousands were dying every day. The truth was worth the risk. The old files were encrypted, but Vera was good with computers. She broke through the security and started reading. What she found made her sick. 300 years ago, the Confederation had encountered a new species called humans. They were technologically behind in some ways, but their military thinking was advanced. The Confederation Council demanded they share their weapons and tactics. The humans refused, so the Confederation tried to take what they wanted by force. They attacked human colonies. They killed millions, but the humans fought back harder than anyone expected. They used guerrilla warfare, surprise attacks, and strategies that seemed crazy until they worked. The humans won. They destroyed Confederation fleets and forced a peace treaty. It was the most embarrassing defeat in Confederation history, so the Council made a decision. They would erase humanity from all records. They would pretend humans never existed. Future generations would never know about the defeat, but the humans did not die out. The records showed they retreated to the edge of known space and vanished. The Confederation declared them extinct. The lie became official history. Vera copied everything to a secure drive. Her entire civilization was built on a lie, and now that lie was killing them. Jake Morrison made his decision. The Ghost Protocol powered up its engines for the first time in months. Other human ships received coded messages. They emerged from their hiding places across the galaxy. In deep space, far from any inhabited system, the Ghost Protocol decloaked. Its sensors found a Confederation supply convoy traveling through an empty sector. Jake opened a communication channel on all frequencies. The message was simple. It showed footage from 300 years ago. Confederation ships attacking human colonies. Children running from explosions. Cities burning. Then it showed current footage of the Confederation losing to the Void Collective. The message ended with coordinates and a time. An invitation to talk. Jake did not expect them to come, but he had to try. Vera Thane saw the message first. She was monitoring secret channels looking for any sign that humans still existed. When she saw the footage, she knew it was real. The humans had survived. They were offering a chance to make things right. She contacted Admiral Krathzon immediately. They met in a secure room where no one could hear them. She showed him the message and the files from the archives. Krathzon was quiet for a long time. Then he made a decision that could end his career or save the Confederation. We will meet them. Prepare a ship. Tell no one. The ghosts were coming back. History was about to change forever. The neutral station floated in empty space far from any star system. It was old, built by a species that went extinct long ago. Now it served as a meeting place for those who needed privacy. Jake Morrison arrived first. His shuttle docked quietly, and he walked through corridors that had not seen visitors in years. Lisa Hamilton walked beside him. She carried a data case filled with evidence. Behind them, 6 armed guards stayed alert. They waited in a large chamber with a table in the center. The walls were bare metal, cold and unwelcoming. Jake sat down and tried to stay calm. This meeting could change everything or end in disaster. An hour later, Admiral Krathzon arrived. He was a tall being with gray skin and dark eyes that showed intelligence. Vera Thane walked beside him. She looked nervous, but determined. The two groups sat across from each other. For a long moment, no one spoke. 300 years of pain and anger filled the silence between them. Finally, Jake broke the silence. His voice was steady, but his words carried weight. You tried to destroy us. You killed millions of our people. Then you erased us from history like we never existed. Why should we help you now? Vera spoke before Krathzon could answer. Her voice shook slightly, because it was wrong. What the Confederation did was evil. I found the real records. I know what happened. Many of us never knew the truth. We were taught lies. Lisa opened her data case and placed files on the table. Images appeared in the air above them. Burning human cities, children crying, fleets attacking defenseless colonies. Admiral Krathzon watched the images. His expression did not change, but something moved behind his eyes. Shame, perhaps, or regret. My people made a terrible choice. We were arrogant. We thought we could take what we wanted. Your ancestors proved us wrong. Then the council decided to hide their shame by pretending you never existed. Jake leaned forward. His eyes were hard. Knowing what happened is not enough. If we help you, the entire Confederation must know the truth. You must admit publicly what you did. History must be corrected. Those are our terms. Krathzon nodded slowly. It was the response of someone who knew he had no choice. I cannot promise that. I am only an admiral, but I will fight for it. The council will resist, but they are running out of options. While the meeting continued, Ryan Clark was executing a mission on the other side of the galaxy. 3 human stealth ships moved through Void Collective territory like shadows. They were small, fast, and invisible to most sensors. Ryan stood on the bridge of his ship studying the tactical display. His target was a massive logistics hub where the Void stored resources harvested from conquered worlds. Destroying it would hurt their war efforts significantly. The Void defenses were strong, but they followed predictable patterns. The Void thought in pure logic. It could not understand chaos. That was humanity's advantage. Ryan gave the order. His 3 ships split up and attacked from different angles simultaneously. They fired missiles that changed course randomly. They used electronic warfare to create false targets. They withdrew and attacked again from unexpected positions. The Void tried to respond, but each time it adapted to one tactic, the human switched to something completely different. Logic could not predict insanity. The logistics hub exploded in a brilliant flash. Secondary explosions rippled through the structure as stored energy was released. Ryan watched the destruction with satisfaction. All ships, withdraw. Mission accomplished. They escaped without a scratch. The Void never even got close to hitting them. News of the attack spread quickly. Confederation military officers who saw the tactical reports could not believe what they were reading. Someone had struck deep into Void territory and emerged unharmed. Someone was using tactics they had never seen before. When the Supreme Chancellor learned that humans were responsible, he was furious. He called an emergency council session. Vera Thane stood before the assembled leaders, knowing her career was over. You contacted them. You revealed our weakness to our ancient enemies. This is treason of the highest order. Vera kept her voice calm. Around her, other counselors shouted accusations. Only a few looked uncertain. Our ancient enemies just destroyed a Void installation that we could not touch. They are offering to help us survive. All they ask is that we tell the truth about what we did. The truth will destroy us. The people will lose faith in the Confederation. The Void will destroy us if we do nothing. At least the truth gives us a chance. Admiral Krathzon entered the chamber. He was not supposed to be there, but he did not care about protocol anymore. I have seen the combat reports. The humans destroyed. A target we have been trying to eliminate for months. They did it easily. Whatever our ancestors did to them, we need to move past it. Pride will not save us. The council chamber erupted in arguments. Some wanted to arrest Vera and Krathzon immediately. Others demanded to see the human combat data. A few quietly wondered if cooperation was possible. While the Confederation argued among themselves, Jake Morrison revealed his final card. He sent a single command to ships waiting in hidden locations across the galaxy. Dozens of human warships decloaked simultaneously. They appeared in orbit around major Confederation worlds near military bases and in critical shipping lanes. They did not attack. They simply made themselves visible. The message was clear. Humanity had been building in secret for 300 years. They had ships, weapons, and the ability to strike anywhere. They chose not to attack. They chose to offer help instead of revenge. Panic spread through Confederation space. Citizens who never knew humans existed suddenly saw their ships on every news feed. Military analysts studied the vessels and realized they used technology that was both familiar and completely alien. Jake received reports of the chaos his revelation caused. Part of him felt satisfaction. The Confederation was finally facing the truth it had tried to bury. But he took no joy in their fear. He remembered the fear his own people felt during the Purge. Lisa Hamilton worked on the historical documents that would be released soon. She wrote carefully, making sure every fact was accurate. This would be humanity's testimony. The galaxy would finally know what really happened. The Void Collective noticed the new development. Its vast intelligence analyzed human tactics and found them disturbing. The humans did not fight like other species. They broke rules. They embraced randomness. They were unpredictable. The Void made a decision. Humanity was designated as a primary threat. Resources would be redirected. The humans had to be eliminated before they taught the Confederation their chaotic ways. Jake received the warning from his intelligence officers. The Void was coming for them now. By revealing themselves, humanity had painted a target on their backs. He looked at the star maps showing human positions. They were spread out, vulnerable. The Confederation still had not agreed to the alliance. If the Void attacked now, humanity would face them alone. Ryan Clark returned from his mission and found Jake staring at the displays. We knew this was a risk. Coming out of hiding was always going to make us targets. Jake nodded. They had made their choice. Now they would live or die by it. On the Confederation capital world, the Supreme Chancellor finally made his decision. His advisors told him the people were demanding answers. Military leaders said they needed human help. The truth could no longer be contained. He authorized the alliance. The Confederation would admit their crimes. Humanity would receive recognition and reparations. Together, they would face the Void. Vera Thane sent the message to Jake Morrison. When he received it, he felt a weight lift from his shoulders. 300 years of hiding, 300 years of survival. It was finally over. The ghosts were becoming real again, but the hardest battles were still ahead. The treaty signing took place on the Confederation capital world. Jake Morrison stood in a grand hall filled with dignitaries from across the galaxy. Cameras recorded every moment. This ceremony would be broadcast to billions of people. The Supreme Chancellor walked forward slowly. He looked older than he had weeks ago. The weight of truth had aged him. 300 years ago, the Confederation committed a terrible crime. We attacked a peaceful species because they refused to submit to our demands. When we lost, we tried to erase them from history. Today, we admit our guilt. Today, we ask forgiveness. The words echoed through the hall. Many in the audience looked uncomfortable. Some wept. Others showed anger. The truth hurt, but it needed to be spoken. Jake stepped forward and signed the treaty document. His signature joined the Chancellor's. The alliance was official. Humanity was recognized again. They were no longer ghosts, but Jake felt no triumph. Too many had died to reach this moment. His grandparents, his parents, countless others who never lived to see this day. The justice came too late for them. Lisa Hamilton watched the ceremony from the Ghost Protocol. She was crying, but she smiled through her tears. The archives she had protected all her life were now part of official history. Children would learn about humanity in schools. The truth would be taught. Ryan Clark stood in a training facility with 50 Confederation officers. They looked at him with mixed expressions. Some showed respect. Others showed doubt. A few showed resentment. He activated the holographic display. A battle simulation appeared in the air before them. Your doctrine teaches you to maximize advantages and minimize risks. That is good strategy most of the time, but the Void thinks the same way. It predicts your moves because you follow logical patterns. One officer raised his hand. His voice carried skepticism. Are you saying we should abandon logic? Ryan shook his head. I am saying you should embrace chaos when it serves you. Sometimes the illogical move is the right move. Sometimes you retreat to advance. Sometimes you sacrifice a piece to win the game. He ran the simulation. The officers watched as human tactics unfolded. Ships broke formation deliberately. They exposed weaknesses that turned out to be traps. They retreated when winning and advanced when losing. None of it made sense until suddenly it did. One officer began to understand. She asked permission to try the simulation herself. Ryan agreed. She attempted a human-style maneuver and failed badly. Her ships collided and her formation collapsed. But Ryan was pleased. Failure was part of learning. She tried again. This time she succeeded partially. It was a start. The training continued for weeks. Slowly, Confederation officers learned to think differently. They stopped following rigid patterns. They started taking calculated risks. Some never adapted, but enough did to make a difference. Lisa Hamilton worked alongside Vera Thane in the Grand Archive. They restored deleted files together, rebuilding the historical record. Lisa showed Vera footage of human culture before the Purge. Music, art, literature, all nearly lost forever. Vera watched a video of human children playing in a park. The park was destroyed during the Confederation attack. Those children probably died. I am so sorry. I wish I could change what happened. Lisa touched her arm gently. You did not do this. Your ancestors did. But you are fixing it. That matters. The next generation will grow up knowing the truth. That is how we prevent it from happening again. They worked together to compile a comprehensive history curriculum. It would be taught in every Confederation school. Children would learn about the Purge, the hiding, and the Alliance. They would learn that lies always come back to haunt you. The Void Collective was gathering forces. Its intelligence had analyzed the new alliance and determined that it needed to be broken immediately. If humans taught the Confederation their chaotic methods, the war could turn against the Void. A massive Void fleet moved toward Threnody Station. The station was where human and Confederation forces trained together. Destroying it would cripple the alliance before it truly formed. Jake Morrison received the warning 30 minutes before the Void arrived. It was not enough time to evacuate. They would have to fight. Admiral Krathzon commanded the Confederation Defense Fleet. Jake commanded the human ships. They opened communication channels and looked at each other across the void of space. We are not ready. Our forces have not finished integration training, Jake agreed, but they had no choice. Then we learn by doing. Follow human tactical doctrine. Trust the chaos. The Void Fleet emerged from hyperspace. Hundreds of organic ships filled the sensors. They moved in perfect coordination, a single mind controlling them all. The battle began badly. Confederation ships tried to use human tactics but executed them poorly. Formations broke apart at the wrong times. Ships collided while attempting complex maneuvers. Communication protocols clashed as human and Confederation systems tried to work together. The Void exploited every mistake. It targeted ships that were out of position. It predicted movements and set traps. The Alliance fleet was being torn apart. Jake watched ships explode on his displays. They were losing. The Alliance would die here before it truly began. He made a decision. He opened a channel to all ships, human and Confederation. All vessels will follow human tactical protocols immediately. Admiral Krathzon confirmed the order. There was a pause. Jake knew what he was asking. Krathzon would have to give up command authority to a human. Pride would demand he refuse. But Krathzon surprised him. Confirmed. All Confederation forces will follow Captain Morrison's commands. We are one fleet now. Jake immediately began giving orders. He reorganized the fleet on the fly. Human ships mixed with Confederation vessels. Fast ships paired with heavy ships. The formation looked chaotic, but it had a hidden pattern. The fleet attacked in waves that made no tactical sense. They retreated from winning positions. They charged into apparent traps that turned out to be ambushes. They sacrificed damaged ships to save healthy ones, which violated every rule of military efficiency. The Void tried to adapt, but human unpredictability was impossible to predict. Every time the Void thought it understood the pattern changed. The battle raged for 8 hours. Ships burned, lives were lost. But slowly the Alliance began winning. Confederation officers started thinking like humans. They took risks. They embraced chaos. They stopped being predictable. Finally, the Void fleet began to retreat. It had taken heavy losses and gained nothing. The Alliance had held. Jake surveyed the damage. Threnody Station was heavily damaged but intact. They had lost 40 ships. Thousands were dead, but they had won their first real victory together. Search and rescue teams from both species worked together, pulling survivors from wreckage. A human crew rescued Confederation officers from a dying ship. A Confederation medical team treated wounded humans. Jake floated through the debris field in a rescue shuttle. He saw a Confederation officer helping a human pilot back to safety. They were supporting each other. Two former enemies now bound by shared sacrifice. Admiral Krathzon contacted him. We fought well together. Your tactics saved us, Jake responded quietly. Our tactics. We are allies now. Your people learned quickly. The Alliance was forged in fire. They had bled together, fought together, and survived together. The past was not forgotten, but they were building something new. The war was far from over. But now they had a chance. The War Council met in a secure bunker deep beneath the Confederation capital. Holographic maps covered the walls showing void positions across the galaxy. Jake Morrison stood beside Admiral Krathzon, studying the intelligence reports. Lisa Hamilton presented her findings. She had been analyzing void behavior patterns for weeks. The void operates like a single organism. Every ship, every drone, every soldier is connected to a central intelligence. We call it the core mind. It coordinates everything from a hidden location deep in their territory. She pointed to a section of the map that showed only darkness. No sensors could penetrate that region. No ship that entered ever returned. If we destroy the core mind, the entire void network will collapse. They will lose coordination. Individual groups will be vulnerable to conventional attack. Jake studied the location. It was surrounded by layers of defenses. Getting there would cost them dearly. Getting out might be impossible. Admiral Krathzon asked the question everyone was thinking. Do we have the resources for such an operation? Our fleet is still recovering from the Battle of Threnody Station. Jake looked around the room. He saw doubt in many faces, fear in others, but he also saw determination. If we wait, the void will adapt to our tactics. They learn from every battle. This might be our only chance. The mission will be dangerous. Many will not return. But if we succeed, we end this war. Counselor Vera Thane spoke up. Her voice carried weight now. She had earned respect through her honesty. I support this operation. We cannot win a war of attrition against the void. We need a decisive strike. The council voted. The operation was approved. They would strike at the heart of the Void Collective. Jake called for volunteers. Thousands responded. Both humans and Confederation citizens wanted to be part of the mission. He selected the best crews and the fastest ships. Ryan Clark would lead the ground assault team. Jake would command the fleet action. The strike force assembled in secret. 40 ships carrying the best soldiers from both species. They knew the odds. They went anyway. The journey into Void territory took 3 weeks. They traveled through areas of space that made strong soldiers weep. Planets stripped of all life. Moons harvested down to bedrock. The remains of civilizations turned into organic material. Jake walked through the Ghost Protocol during the journey. He talked to his crew, trying to keep morale up. Many were young, too young to remember the purge. They had grown up in hiding, trained for war, and now faced the ultimate test. One young pilot approached him. Her name was Sarah Brooks. She could not have been older than 20. Captain, are you scared? Jake considered lying. Leaders were supposed to show confidence, but he decided on honesty. Yes. Every time I go into battle, I am scared. Fear keeps you sharp. It reminds you what you are fighting for. Sarah nodded. She seemed satisfied with that answer. Ryan Clark trained his assault team constantly. They practiced breaching tactics, explosive placement, and evacuation procedures. He made them run through every scenario dozens of times. His second in command was a Confederation officer named Lieutenant Carl Turner. Carl had lost his family to the Void. He volunteered for the most dangerous part of the mission without hesitation. They became friends during training. Carl asked Ryan why humans were helping after everything the Confederation did. Ryan thought about it before answering. Because holding on to hate destroys you from the inside. We remember what happened. We will never forget, but we choose to move forward. The Void wants to consume everything. If we do not stop them together, there will be nothing left to fight over. The strike force reached the edge of the dark zone. Sensor readings showed massive concentrations of Void forces ahead. Automated defense platforms, bioorganic weapon systems, millions of drones ready to defend the core mind. Jake gave the order to advance. The fleet entered the darkness. The defenses activated immediately. Weapons fire filled space. Ships dodged and weaved through storms of projectiles. The Void threw everything at them. They lost the first ship within minutes, then another. The fleet pressed forward using every trick they knew. They created false targets. They used debris as cover. They sacrificed smaller ships to protect the assault carrier. Admiral Krathzon commanded a wing of heavy cruisers. They formed a protective wall around the advancing force, taking terrible damage but holding position. He watched his ships die one by one. His communication officer reported that they had lost half the fleet. They were still 3 layers of defense away from the core mind. Jake made a desperate decision. He ordered all remaining ships to concentrate fire on a single point. They would blast through the defenses in one massive push. It would cost them everything, but the assault ship might break through. The fleet executed the maneuver. Ships exploded as they poured every weapon into a focused area. Space itself seemed to tear apart. The defensive line buckled. The assault carrier, carrying Ryan Clark and his team, shot through the gap. Behind them, the remaining fleet fought to keep the corridor open. Most would not survive. Ryan felt the ship shaking as they penetrated the core mine's location. Through the viewports, he saw a massive organic structure floating in space. It pulsed with sickly light. Tendrils of biomatter connected it to surrounding stations. The assault carrier docked with the structure. Ryan led his team out, wearing combat suits designed for hostile environments. They moved through corridors that were more biological than technological. Walls pulsed. The floor felt alive beneath their feet. Void drones attacked constantly. The team fought through waves of enemies, losing soldiers with every engagement. Carl Turner stayed by Ryan's side, covering his movements. They reached the core mine chamber. It was a massive space filled with organic computing tissue. The intelligence that controlled the entire Void Collective existed here. A living supercomputer of horrifying complexity. Ryan began placing explosive charges on critical nodes. His team formed a defensive perimeter, fighting off endless attacks. The Void knew what they were doing and was throwing everything at them. Sarah Brooks fell defending the entrance. Then Lieutenant Turner took a hit protecting Ryan. He fell and Ryan caught him. Go, finish it. Ryan placed the final charges. He looked at his team. Only a handful remained. The evacuation route was blocked by Void forces. He made a decision. He ordered his surviving team to fight their way back to the ship. He would stay behind to ensure detonation. They refused at first, but he made it an order. Jake Morrison watched from the Ghost Protocol as the assault team evacuated. His screen showed Ryan alone in the core mine chamber, surrounded by enemies. Ryan opened a communication channel. His voice was calm. Tell everyone that this was worth it. Tell them that humans and the Confederation can build something better than what came before. I'm glad I got to be part of it. Jake tried to respond, but the words would not come. Ryan triggered the charges. The core mine exploded in a cascade of energy that rippled across space. The psychic backlash traveled through the Void network instantly. Across the galaxy, Void ships went dark. Drones stopped moving. The coordination that made them unstoppable vanished. They were just individual units now, confused and vulnerable. Jake ordered the fleet to retreat. They had lost 38 of 40 ships. Thousands were dead, including Ryan Clark. But they had won. The victory felt hollow as Jake looked at the casualty lists. So many names, so many lives, but the war could be won now. Ryan's sacrifice meant something. They all meant something. Jake Morrison stood in the memorial hall aboard the Ghost Protocol. The walls displayed names of those who died in the core mine assault. Ryan Clark's name was at the top of the list. 38 ships lost, 7,412 souls gone. Lisa Hamilton found him there. She had been looking for him for hours. He had not eaten or slept since the fleet returned. You need to rest. The fleet needs you. Jake did not turn around. His eyes remained fixed on Ryan's name. I sent them there. I gave the order. Ryan died because of my decision. Lisa moved beside him. She understood his pain. She had lost people too. Ryan volunteered. They all volunteered. They knew the risks. They went anyway because they believed in something bigger than themselves. Honor their sacrifice by finishing what they started. She showed him a datapad. On it was the completed historical archive. Every piece of human history restored and preserved. Treaties guaranteed it would be taught forever. This is what Ryan died for, not just to destroy the Void, to make sure no one ever forgets us again. We are part of galactic history now. Permanent and undeniable. Jake took the datapad and read through the files. Stories of human courage, culture, and survival. The Purge was documented in full detail. So was the Alliance. Ryan's final message was included. Across the galaxy, the Void Collective was falling apart. Without the core mind, individual clusters operated independently. They could not coordinate attacks. They could not adapt quickly. They were vulnerable. The Alliance launched a massive counteroffensive. Human and Confederation fleets worked together seamlessly now. They had learned to trust each other through shared sacrifice. Admiral Krathzon commanded the liberation forces. He had changed since the Core Mind mission. The old arrogance was gone. In its place was humility and respect. System after system was reclaimed. Worlds that had been stripped of life were marked for restoration. The Void fought back, but without coordination they were no match for the combined alliance. The campaign took 6 months. It was not easy. There were setbacks and losses, but the outcome was never in doubt. The alliance was too strong, too determined. Counselor Vera Thane worked tirelessly during the campaign. She coordinated relief efforts for liberated worlds. She ensured that both human and Confederation refugees received equal treatment. She became a symbol of the new alliance. The final Void stronghold was located in the Tarsus system. It was heavily defended, but Jake knew they could win. He assembled the largest fleet since the Core Mind assault. The Ghost Protocol led the attack. Beside it flew Admiral Krathzon's flagship. Their ships moved in perfect coordination, demonstrating how far the alliance had come. The battle lasted 18 hours. The Void fought desperately, knowing this was their last stand. But desperation was not enough. The alliance overwhelmed them through superior tactics and unwavering cooperation. When the last Void installation exploded, Jake broadcast a message across all alliance channels. The war is over. The Void Collective has been defeated. We won because we stood together. Remember those who fell. Honor their sacrifice by building a better future. Cheers erupted on every ship. Humans and Confederation crew members embraced. Some cried. Others laughed. The nightmare was finally over. Jake felt relief but also sadness. Ryan should have been here to see this. So many others should have been here. The victory celebration was held on the Confederation capital world. Billions watched as Jake Morrison and Admiral Krathzon received the highest military honors. The Supreme Chancellor gave a speech about unity and sacrifice, but Jake's mind was elsewhere. He thought about his grandparents who died in hiding, his parents who never saw humanity recognized, all the ghosts who kept the dream alive. After the ceremony, Jake spoke to the assembled crowd. His words were broadcast across the galaxy. 300 years ago, the Confederation tried to erase humanity from existence. They failed because you cannot kill an idea. You cannot delete truth. We survived in the shadows waiting for the right moment. When that moment came, we chose forgiveness over revenge. We chose to help those who wronged us because that is what makes us human. We are not perfect. We make mistakes. But we learn. We adapt, we survive, and we never ever forget. The crowd was silent. Then applause began. Slowly at first, then building into a roar. Both humans and Confederation citizens stood and cheered. Vera Thane was promoted to High Counselor. Her first act was to establish a joint government structure that included human representatives. The Confederation was being rebuilt as a true alliance of equals. She met with Jake privately after the announcement. They sat in a quiet garden away from the crowds. We have a chance to build something new. Something better than what came before. But it will take work. Old prejudices do not disappear overnight, Jake agreed. Change would be difficult. There were still those who resented humans. There were humans who could not forgive the Confederation. But enough people on both sides were willing to try. The most important work is education. The next generation must learn the truth from the beginning. They must understand what happens when fear and pride guide decisions. Vera promised to make sure that happened. History classes would teach about the purge, the hiding, the alliance, and the victory. Children would grow up knowing that different species could work together. Lisa Hamilton began teaching at the Confederation's premier academy. Her classroom was filled with students from dozens of species. She taught them about human culture, history, and philosophy, but she also taught them about other species. She emphasized that every culture had value. Every perspective mattered. The goal was not for everyone to become the same, but to learn from each other. One day, a young human student asked her a question. "Teacher, are we still ghosts?" Lisa smiled. It was the same question she had asked herself many times. No, we were ghosts when we had to hide. We were ghosts when the galaxy forgot us. But we are not ghosts anymore. We are alive. We are recognized. We are home. The student seemed satisfied with that answer. Jake Morrison eventually retired from active military service. He spent his final years writing. He documented everything that happened from his perspective. He wanted future generations to understand what it was like to live as a ghost. He also wrote about Ryan Clark, Sarah Brooks, and all the others who died. Their stories would not be forgotten. Their sacrifices made the new galaxy possible. 20 years after the war ended, Lisa Hamilton stood in front of her class and told them about the journey humanity had taken. She spoke of suffering and survival, of revenge denied and forgiveness chosen, of ghosts becoming guardians. The students listened carefully. Some were human, some were not. They were growing up in a galaxy where cooperation was normal. They could not imagine a time when species tried to erase each other. That was good. That was progress. Outside the academy, the sky was filled with ships. Human vessels patrolled alongside Confederation craft. They protected trade routes, explored new systems, and kept the peace. The Ghost Protocol had been retired and turned into a museum. People visited it to see where humanity survived during the dark years. Children walked through its corridors and imagined what it must have been like. Jake Morrison visited the ship one last time before he died. He walked through the command center where he made so many difficult decisions. He touched the walls that had been home for most of his life. Lisa Hamilton was with him. They were both old now, but their minds were still sharp. We did it. We kept humanity alive. We earned our place in the galaxy. Jake nodded. He thought about his grandparents, his parents, and all the ghosts who came before. They had passed the torch, and his generation carried it forward. Now it was time to pass the torch again. The next generation would carry humanity into the future. They would face new challenges, make new mistakes, and find new solutions, but they would do it as equals among the stars. Not as ghosts, not as forgotten victims, but as proud members of a galactic community built on truth and cooperation. The Confederation had tried to delete humanity from history, but history has a way of remembering. Truth has a way of surviving, and humanity had proven that some things cannot be killed. You cannot kill a ghost, and you cannot silence a species that refuses to be forgotten. The story was far from over, but this chapter was complete. Humanity's place in the galaxy was secure. Their history was preserved. Their future was bright. The ghosts had finally come home. 50 years after the war ended, the galaxy had changed beyond recognition. The alliance that began in desperation had grown into something remarkable. New species joined every year. The principles of truth, cooperation, and mutual respect became the foundation of galactic society. Dr. Lisa Hamilton had passed away peacefully at age 97. Her funeral was attended by thousands. Representatives from 40 different species came to honor her. She had spent her entire life protecting truth and teaching others. Her legacy lived in every classroom across the galaxy. Jake Morrison died 2 years later. His state funeral was the largest in galactic history. The Ghost Protocol, now a permanent museum, became his final resting place. A statue of him stood in the command center where he had made so many crucial decisions, but their work continued through those they inspired. Commander Rachel Brooks stood on the bridge of the newest human exploration vessel. She was the daughter of Sarah Brooks, who died in the core mine assault. Rachel had grown up hearing stories about her mother's bravery. Now she carried on that legacy by exploring the unknown. Her crew was mixed: humans, former Confederation species, and members of newly contacted civilizations worked together seamlessly. They did not think about their differences. They simply did their jobs. Rachel's mission was to explore regions beyond known space. They were looking for new worlds to settle, new species to contact, and new resources to develop. The galaxy was vast, and there was still so much to discover. On the Confederation capital, now officially renamed Unity Prime, a young student named Peter Hamilton studied history. He was Lisa Hamilton's great-grandson. He had never met her, but he felt her influence every day. Peter's teacher was a Confederation scholar named Professor Elena Wright. She taught using the methods Lisa had developed. The curriculum was honest, sometimes painfully so. Students learned about the Purge in graphic detail. They studied the mistakes that led to the conflict, but they also learned about redemption. They studied how former enemies became allies. They analyzed the decisions that led to peace. Peter raised his hand during class one day. "Professor, why did humans forgive the Confederation? If someone tried to erase my species, I do not think I could forgive them." Professor Wright considered the question carefully. It was one she had thought about many times. Forgiveness is not about forgetting. The humans never forgot what happened. But they understood that holding on to hate would destroy them. They chose survival over revenge. They chose building over destroying. That choice saved both species. The classroom was quiet as students thought about that answer. They were lucky to live in a time when such choices led to peace. Their grandparents had not been so fortunate. Admiral Daniel Clark commanded the Joint Defense Fleet. He was Ryan Clark's grandson, though he had never known his grandfather. Ryan died before Daniel was born, but Daniel grew up hearing stories about the hero who sacrificed everything. The Defense Fleet was different from the wartime fleets. Its primary mission was protection and peacekeeping, not conquest. Daniel took that responsibility seriously. His flagship, named the Ryan Clark in honor of his grandfather, patrolled the borders of known space. They watched for threats but also helped ships in distress. They mediated disputes between colonies. They represented the best of what the Alliance could be. Daniel's second-in-command was a Confederation officer named Captain Helen Pierce. They had served together for 10 years. Their friendship represented how far both species had come. One day they received a distress signal from a remote system. A colony was under attack by raiders. Daniel ordered the fleet to respond immediately. The raiders scattered when they saw the fleet arrive. The colony was saved. Daniel met with the colonists afterward. They were grateful and surprised. "Thank you, Admiral. We expected to die. We had given up hope." Daniel thought about his grandfather who had died giving others hope. Never give up hope. That is what humanity learned. That is what we teach now. The Ghost Protocol Museum received millions of visitors every year. Children walked through its corridors, seeing how humans lived during the hiding years. They saw the cramped quarters, the limited resources, the constant fear, but they also saw the hope. They saw families celebrating together. They saw children being taught their history. They saw people refusing to let their culture die. The museum's director was a human named Marcus Webb. He took his job seriously. He wanted every visitor to understand what it meant to be erased from history. He gave tours personally sometimes. He would stop in the command center where Jake Morrison's statue stood. This is where it all changed. This is where humanity decided to reveal itself. Captain Morrison could have stayed hidden. He could have let the Confederation fall, but he chose differently. He chose to help his enemies. That decision changed everything. Young visitors would ask questions. Why did he help them? Were not they the bad guys? Marcus would explain that life is rarely that simple. Yes, the Confederation committed terrible crimes. But they were also people capable of learning and changing. Morrison saw that. He gave them a chance to be better. On Unity Prime, the annual Remembrance Day was observed galaxy-wide. It honored all who died in the Void War, but especially those who died in the Core Mind Assault. Rachel Brooks attended the ceremony. She wore her mother's military insignia, preserved all these years. When they read the names of the fallen, she stood at attention. Sarah Brooks was the 53rd name on the list. After the ceremony, Rachel visited the memorial wall. Her mother's name was carved into stone alongside thousands of others. She traced the letters with her fingers. An elderly Confederation woman approached. She looked at the wall with tears in her eyes. "My son's name is here. He volunteered for the Core Mind mission. He never came back." Rachel looked at her with understanding. "My mother is here too. She was 23 when she died. I never got to know her. But I know she died believing in something important." The two women stood together in silence. Human and Confederation, both mourning losses from the same battle, both grateful for the peace their loved ones helped create. Peter Hamilton graduated from the academy with honors. He decided to become a historian like his great-grandmother. He wanted to ensure that future generations never forgot the lessons learned. His first assignment was to document newly contacted species. He traveled to distant worlds, learning about cultures humanity had never encountered. Each time he thought about Lisa Hamilton and her dedication to preserving knowledge. He wrote detailed reports about every species he met. He recorded their languages, customs, and histories. He made sure they would be remembered accurately. No more erasing. No more deleting. Every species deserved to have their story told truthfully. Admiral Daniel Clark received a promotion to Fleet Commander. He now oversaw all military operations in the Alliance. It was a position of tremendous responsibility. During his promotion ceremony, He gave a speech that was broadcast across the galaxy. My grandfather died so we could live in peace. He never got to see the galaxy we built, but I think he would be proud. We have not had a major war in 50 years. Different species work together. Children grow up not knowing hate. This is what he fought for. This is what they all fought for. The audience stood and applauded. Many were crying. The memories were still fresh for some. For others, they were just stories. But everyone understood the significance. Rachel Brooks's exploration ship discovered a habitable world in an uncharted system. It was beautiful, with vast oceans and green continents, the perfect place for a new colony. The naming committee decided to call it New Haven. It would be a joint colony, with settlers from multiple species. They would build a community based on cooperation from the beginning. Rachel watched the first shuttle land on the planet's surface. She thought about her mother, who never got to see the peace her sacrifice helped create. She thought about all the ghosts who kept humanity alive during the dark years. They would be proud of what we built. They would be happy knowing their sacrifices mattered. On Unity Prime in the Grand Archive, researchers continued restoring old records. They found new pieces of history every day. Each discovery added to the complete picture of the past. One researcher found personal logs from the Purge. A mother describing how she protected her children. A father recording his final thoughts before a Confederation attack. These were the voices that were almost lost forever. The logs were added to the archive. They were painful to read but important. Future generations needed to understand the real cost of hatred and fear. The galaxy had changed. Where once there was conflict, now there was cooperation. Where once there was deletion, now there was preservation. Where once there were ghosts, now there were proud citizens. Humanity had proven something important. You cannot erase truth. You cannot delete history. You cannot kill a species that refuses to die. The ghosts became legends. The legends became history. And history became the foundation for a better future. Every child in the galaxy learned about the Purge. They learned about survival in the shadows. They learned about forgiveness and alliance. They learned that even the darkest times can lead to brightness if people choose hope over hate. The story of humanity's deletion and return became a lesson taught across the stars. It was a reminder of what happens when fear guides decisions.